Welcome to Torah in 2. Because God said so, the Rebbe answers that we must observe even basic laws like do not murder or rob because God commands us and not rely on intellect alone. In this week's Parsha Mishpatim, it says, Ve'ela mishpatim asher tasim lifnehem. These are the statutes, mishpatim, that I placed before them, lifnehem. There are three explanations of the word lifnehem, before them. The first is that one should place one's dispute before Jewish courts and not secular, even if the law is the same. Second, lifnehem is related to the word panim, which means internal dimension. A student must be shown the motivating principles in Torah law and not suffice by saying to him, this is the law. Third, lifnehem is related to the word pnimius, inside oneself. The Alter Rebbe explains that the Torah laws must permeate to the deepest parts of our soul. There are three categories of mitzvahs commandments. Chukim, the laws which are not rational like kosher. Edus, laws which we do not have grasp on our own. And now that the Torah tells us we can understand the rationale, like Pesach, Mishpatim are the laws which human logic requires observance, like modesty that we learn from a cat, and theft that we can learn from an ant. We can understand why the Torah tells us to go to Jewish court instead of secular, because if they hold the same law, what is the difference? However, the Rebbe asks, why are the last two explanations specifically connected with Mishpatim? Why does the Torah have to instruct us to understand the motivating rationale, and that observing the rational laws must come from the deepest parts of our soul? Seemingly, we would observe them anyways. The Rebbe answers that these laws comes right after the giving of the Ten Commandments, where two sets of laws are given. The first dealing with the concepts of divine unity, and the last set dealing with basic laws, like do not murder or kidnap. This is to teach us that even basic laws must be observed because God commands us. There are two problems with relying on intellect alone. One, there is a tendency towards spiritual descent, because when one does because intellect tells him and not God, he is severing his connection with God. Such an attitude can eventually lead a person to commit the worst sins. Two, even when one does mitzvahs solely out of intellect, his observance will lack the awareness of how mitzvahs connect a Jew with God. Thus, we are commanded to go to Jewish court instead of a secular court, even if they would rule the same, because the Jewish court's rulings comes because of God's commandments, whereas a secular court comes from human intellect. When we arouse the deepest parts of our soul, we understand that mitzvahs connect us with God, and we will do the mitzvahs unquestionably. The Rebbe's directive is that even those who are less developed than animals and have not learned the lessons of prohibition of theft from an ant must be told, do not murder and do not steal because God commands it. They must nevertheless develop their faith in God. Also must help even such people by exposing them to Torah's mystic dimensions. By doing so, we will arouse the inner dimensions of their soul, and this will permeate their thoughts and feelings to the point where their conduct will be affected and they will truly live.